There's a point in life when you stop chasing explanations and start protecting your peace. You realize not everyone deserves a response, and not every situation deserves a reaction. Some things don't need closure, they just need distance. That's when you start to see how much of your energy was being spent trying to fix what was never yours to fix. You begin to notice how chaos loses interest when you stop feeding it. The people who once had power over your emotions start to fade, not because they changed, but because you did. You stopped letting their behavior write your story. You stopped making pain your personality. You stopped confusing attention with respect. It's not about being cold or indifferent, it's about learning to care differently. You care enough to stay kind, but not enough to keep bleeding for what hurts you. You stop reacting out of habit and start responding out of awareness. That's what real strength looks like, not fighting harder, but protecting your calm like it's sacred. This is stop giving power to what hurts you. A reminder that peace isn't something the world gives, it's something you decide to keep. Most of what exhausts you isn't even yours to hold. It's the emotions you absorbed from other people, the expectations you agreed to carry, and the guilt you never questioned. You didn't choose this weight. You inherited it from the noise around you, from broken people who made their pain your responsibility. Somewhere along the way, you forgot that empathy doesn't mean ownership. You grew up thinking that being kind meant being available, that love meant endurance, and that silence meant strength. You started saying yes to things that drained you because you were afraid of being seen as unkind. But there's a difference between compassion and self-neglect. Carrying someone else's chaos doesn't make you caring, it makes you lost. People project their pain like it's contagious. They hand you their anger, their frustration, their sadness, and call it connection. And because you've always wanted to help, you picked it up. You carried their moods like they were your own, convinced that maybe if you fixed them, you'd finally find peace too. But peace doesn't come from saving everyone, it comes from saving yourself first. You can't fix what isn't yours. You can listen, you can guide, you can care. But the moment you take responsibility for someone else's healing, you begin to abandon your own. Emotional boundaries are not cruelty, they are clarity. You're not cold for protecting your peace. You're wise for finally seeing where your limits end. The heaviest burdens are invisible. They live in the form of guilt, obligation, and unspoken expectations. You start believing that your value lies in how much you can endure. So you become the one who absorbs the pain, the one who understands too much, the one who rarely asks for anything in return. But even the strongest soul collapses when carrying what was never meant to be theirs. It's time to start asking a question you've avoided. Is this mine to carry? Every emotion, every problem, every reaction that lands on your shoulders, stop and ask that first. Because not everything that touches you belongs to you. Sometimes it's just passing through, waiting for permission to leave. And the moment you stop identifying with it, it loses power over you. Empathy without boundaries becomes self-destruction. You start living inside other people's storms and wondering why you can't find calm. You confuse helping with absorbing. But being a source of light doesn't mean burning yourself to keep others warm. The world doesn't need your exhaustion, it needs your clarity. You were never meant to carry everyone's emotions. You were meant to understand them, not inherit them. The difference is everything. When you start separating your feelings from theirs, you'll notice how much lighter life feels. It's not that the world becomes easier. It's that you finally stop taking responsibility for every dark cloud that passes. There's power in recognizing emotional ownership. You stop apologizing for not reacting, for not fixing, for not absorbing someone's pain. You learn that people are allowed to be upset, and you're allowed not to make it your fault. That's not indifference, that's maturity. You can care deeply and still choose peace. It takes courage to stop carrying what others refuse to release. You'll feel guilty at first, Guilt is the echo of old conditioning. You were taught to feel responsible for everyone else's comfort. But guilt fades when you realize peace is not selfish, it's maintenance. You can't pour from an empty mind. You can't guide from a broken heart. Some people don't want solutions, they want a place to unload. They'll hand you their pain and leave lighter while you walk away heavier. You start to recognize these exchanges for what they are, emotional transfers, not connections. Protecting yourself from them doesn't make you heartless, it makes you healthy. The truth is, not everyone deserves access to your energy. Some people confuse kindness with availability. They take what they need and leave when you finally need something back. But your empathy is not a free resource, it's sacred. When you start valuing it, the world learns how to treat it too. You start to see how much of your exhaustion came from absorbing reactions, not events. It wasn't what people did, it was how much you carried from it. The look, the tone, the silence, you took it all personally. But awareness changes that. Once you learn to step back and observe instead of absorb, your emotional world transforms. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop breaking every time something moves. You begin to understand that feeling deeply doesn't require suffering endlessly. You can have empathy and still have boundaries. The strongest hearts are the ones that know when to stay open and when to close the door gently. Your peace starts to grow when you realize how much wasn't yours to begin with. The guilt, the pressure, the anxiety, half of it belonged to someone else. It was handed down like emotional debt, and you kept paying it without questioning why. Now, you're allowed to stop. You're allowed to return what was never meant for you. You'll lose people when you stop carrying their pain, not because you've changed, but because your silence forces them to face their own. And that's uncomfortable for those who depend on your energy to stay afloat. But remember, your peace will always threaten those who profit from your chaos. Let them adjust to your calm. Freedom begins the moment you realize emotional detachment isn't avoidance, it's awareness. You can listen to someone's story without making it your responsibility to rewrite it. You can witness their struggle without drowning in it. You can stand near the fire without setting yourself on fire. That's emotional intelligence in its purest form. You are not cold for choosing distance. You are clear. You are no longer trying to earn love by carrying weight that wasn't yours. You are learning that presence doesn't mean participation. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is to let others carry their own lessons. You are free when you stop trying to rescue what resists healing. The day you stop carrying other people's emotions is the day you meet yourself again. You rediscover your thoughts, your rhythm, your silence. You realize how much of your peace was traded for problems that were never yours to fix. And for the first time, you feel the difference between exhaustion and empathy. When someone tries to hand you their chaos, you'll smile softly and say, "That's not mine." No anger, no guilt, just awareness. Because you'll finally understand that the weight you carried for years wasn't a burden of love, it was a lesson in boundaries. And by putting it down, you're not losing anyone. You're finding yourself. You spend years trying to make people understand you, your choices, your feelings, your silence. You replay conversations in your head, editing every word to sound softer, smarter, or more acceptable. But the truth is, peace doesn't come from being understood. It comes from no longer needing to explain yourself to those who have already decided not to listen. Understanding isn't earned through justification, it's felt through alignment. Explaining yourself is a habit born from fear. Fear of rejection, of being labeled wrong, of losing connection. You think that if you just say it right, people will finally see your heart. But those who want to misunderstand you will always find a way to twist your truth. The more you explain, the more you hand over your power. The moment you stop, peace quietly walks back into your life. When you constantly justify yourself, You turn every choice into a debate. You start questioning your instincts because someone else doesn't agree with them, but your life was never meant to be voted on. You don't need permission to grow, to change, or to protect your peace. The right people won't need your explanation. They'll feel your intention. There's freedom in saying less. You begin to realize that your energy doesn't need to be spent proving what's already true. Silence becomes your boundary not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. You understand that people hear only from the level they're willing to understand. So instead of shouting louder, you start speaking softer, and sometimes not at all. The more you explain yourself, the less peace you have. You start living to defend your reputation instead of living your reality. Every explanation becomes a negotiation with someone who may never see your side. Peace begins when you decide that your truth doesn't need to be convincing, it only needs to be consistent. When you stop explaining, you learn who's really meant to walk with you. The ones who value you won't demand constant proof of your worth. They'll trust your silence the way others question your words. You stop performing for understanding and start choosing people who already see you without translation. That's real peace, effortless and mutual. Not everyone deserves access to your reasons. Some people don't want clarity, they want control. They'll pretend to misunderstand just to keep you explaining. But every time you explain, you give them what they want: your focus. The most powerful thing you can do is walk away mid-sentence and realize you don't owe anyone the closure they refuse to give themselves. Peace doesn't come from being right, it comes from letting go of the need to prove it. You stop entering arguments that have no purpose. You stop defending your boundaries to people who benefit from crossing them. You learn that your silence doesn't mean surrender, it means self-respect. You're no longer here to win, you're here to rest in truth. You'll notice that peace feels awkward at first. You've spent so long explaining yourself that quiet feels unfamiliar. You'll want to fill the silence with words to fix the discomfort of being misunderstood, but that's your old conditioning talking. True peace doesn't need to be comfortable, it needs to be honest. When you stop explaining, your presence starts speaking louder. People notice your calm, your consistency, your detachment from chaos. That's what power looks like. Not noise, not defense, just control. You stop being reactive, and suddenly, the world doesn't pull you like it used to. You've taken your energy off the market. Explanations are often attempts to earn empathy from people who've already decided not to care. You can't teach compassion to the unwilling. You can only show it to yourself by walking away. Peace is what happens when you stop teaching people how to treat you and start showing them through distance. Every time you defend your truth, you dilute it. You turn what's sacred into something negotiable. The truth doesn't need repetition, it needs conviction. You start realizing that the loudest energy in the room isn't the one speaking, it's the one that doesn't have to. That's when your peace becomes unshakable. You stop needing validation when you start trusting your own awareness. You no longer look outward for confirmation of what you already know inside. The mind that trusts itself doesn't explain, it decides. You start living in quiet alignment instead of loud confusion. That's where peace begins, in self-trust, not approval. The people who truly care about you will feel your intentions even in silence. They'll understand your boundaries without explanation. They'll read your pauses with empathy instead of ego. You stop trying to make yourself smaller just to be seen more clearly. The right ones will never need you to shrink to understand your worth. When you stop explaining, you stop inviting judgment. You stop opening doors for people to weigh in on your choices. You start living on your own terms. That doesn't make you distant, it makes you focused. It's not selfish to protect your energy, it's strategic. You finally learn that saying nothing can be the most powerful form of communication. Peace doesn't mean cutting everyone off, it means cutting off the urge to prove yourself. You still care, but you care differently. You stop needing to correct every misunderstanding. You realize that truth defends itself over time. You don't have to fight for clarity. You just have to keep living in it. You'll feel lighter when you stop explaining. The weight of being misunderstood will fade because you'll understand something deeper. Peace was never about being seen. It was about being settled. You can walk in silence and still speak volumes. That's what it means to be free from needing to be right. You begin to see how exhausting it was to explain your peace to people committed to chaos. You can't translate calm to someone addicted to noise. You can't teach awareness to someone who only listens to ego. So you stop trying. You choose quiet over conflict and peace over persuasion. You'll catch yourself mid-explanation and stop. You'll take a breath and smile because you'll realize that peace doesn't need to defend itself. It just exists. The moment you no longer feel the need to justify who you are, the noise fades. You finally understand that peace doesn't come when they understand you. It comes when you no longer need them to. Your energy is the most valuable thing you own. It fuels your thoughts, shapes your emotions, and builds the reality you live in. Yet, you give it away too easily to arguments that don't matter, to people who don't listen, and to situations that only exist to drain you. You wouldn't leave your door open for anyone to walk into your home, so why let anyone walk into your mind? Protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's survival. Every day, you exchange energy with the world through your attention, your reactions, and your emotions. And just like oxygen, once it's depleted, everything feels heavy. You start to feel tired, anxious, disconnected, not because life is harder, but because you're leaking energy into everything that doesn't serve your peace. Protecting your energy means knowing where it flows and choosing where it goes. Most people lose energy not because they're doing too much, but because they're doing too much for the wrong reasons. You overextend to please others, to avoid guilt, to maintain peace that isn't real. But peace that costs your energy isn't peace, it's performance. The more you try to keep everyone else comfortable, the further you drift from your own center. You start protecting your energy the day you realize how expensive your attention really is. Every time you argue with someone who doesn't want to understand, you pay in peace. Every time you overthink what someone said, you pay in time. And every time you chase validation, you pay in self-worth. Real wealth begins when you stop spending your energy on things that don't grow you. People will always test your boundaries not because they're evil, but because they're used to access. They'll take until you say, enough. Protecting your energy doesn't mean you hate them. It means you love yourself enough to stop letting them drain you. Boundaries are not barriers, they're filters. They keep what nourishes you and release what depletes you. It's easy to spot who drains you when you start paying attention. After some interactions, you feel inspired, lighter, seen. After others, you feel anxious, small, and exhausted. That's not coincidence, that's energy exchange. Protecting yourself means listening to that feeling. The body doesn't lie. It knows when something isn't safe for your peace. There's a misconception that protecting your energy makes you distant. But distance isn't disconnection, it's direction. You're not cutting people off. You're cutting off chaos. You're learning that you can care without collapsing. You can be kind without being constantly available. Protecting your energy is the art of loving without losing yourself. You'll notice how the world changes when you stop reacting to everything. What once felt urgent suddenly feels irrelevant, not because you don't care, but because you finally know what matters. You stop wasting energy proving your worth to people who can't see it, and start using it to build something that does peace, purpose, growth. Protecting your energy means saying no even when your voice shakes. It means choosing rest over rushing, silence over argument, and solitude over superficial company. It's the discipline of putting your well-being before your reputation, because at the end of the day, peace won't come from being liked, it'll come from being aligned. Sometimes, The loudest way to protect your energy is to walk away quietly. No announcement, no explanation, just distance. You'll find that silence becomes your shield. Not everyone deserves a reply. Not every situation deserves your emotion. When you stop feeding noise, it starves on its own. That's how power works quietly. Your energy responds to what you believe you deserve. If you think chaos is normal, you'll keep attracting it. If you think peace is luxury, you'll keep earning it through exhaustion. But when you finally understand that peace is your baseline, not your reward, everything changes. You stop chasing calm and start embodying it. You can't control who drains you, but you can control your access points. Limit what enters your mind, the conversations, the news, the opinions. You don't have to consume everything you're exposed to. Protecting your energy also means protecting your input. The more selective you are with what you allow in, the lighter you'll feel inside. Protecting your energy also means protecting your self-talk. The most draining voice is often your own. Every time you criticize yourself, doubt yourself, or replay old mistakes, you deplete your mental oxygen. Replace self-judgment with awareness. Don't attack your flaws, understand them. What you observe without judgment, you eventually heal. You'll realize that protecting your energy changes how you move through life. You stop rushing to fix things. You stop overcommitting. You stop saying yes when your body says no. Your schedule, your habits, your priorities, they all start reflecting one simple truth. Peace first. Everything else can wait. You'll lose people when you start protecting your energy, especially those who benefited from your lack of boundaries. They'll call you distant, different, detached, but that's okay. The people who truly value you won't punish you for protecting yourself. They'll understand that your silence isn't rejection, it's recovery. When you protect your energy, you start healing your nervous system. The constant fight or flight response begins to fade. You breathe deeper, think clearer, sleep better. You stop living in reaction and start living in rhythm. That's what peace feels like, not loud joy, but quiet stability. Energy protection is not a one-time act, it's a lifestyle. It's waking up each day and asking, asterisk, where is my attention going today? Asterisk. It's reminding yourself that you don't have to attend every battle you're invited to. The moment you realize that ignoring something is also an action, you become untouchable. You start to understand that energy attracts energy. When you operate from peace, you draw peaceful situations. When you vibrate in chaos, chaos finds you faster. Protecting your energy isn't about control, it's about awareness. What you give attention to, you give power to. Choose wisely where that power flows. You'll notice something beautiful. Life starts to feel lighter. Not because it changed, but because you did. You no longer absorb every emotion or chase every argument. You breathe differently, think differently, move differently. You finally realize your peace was never gone, it was just buried under everything you gave your energy to. Protecting your energy like it's oxygen means understanding this. You cannot live fully if you're constantly gasping for peace. You are not here to carry everyone's emotions, solve every problem, or explain every decision. You are here to protect your light, and when you do, everything around you begins to align with it. There's a moment when words stop working. You've explained, reasoned, defended, and tried to be understood, but the noise never ends. That's when you realize real power isn't in louder arguments or longer explanations. It's in the quiet decision to walk away. The kind of leaving that doesn't need an announcement, a post, or an apology. Just calm. Because silence often says what words can't times, I'm done giving energy to what drains me. Asterisk. Walking away without noise is not weakness. It's emotional precision. It's the choice to no longer perform your pain for people who never plan to understand it. You stop trying to convince the unconvincible. You stop playing the same conversations in loops that never lead anywhere new. You realize that peace doesn't require closure, it requires distance. There's a certain strength in silence that the loud rarely understand. The one who walks away quietly isn't defeated. They're evolved. They've learned that validation doesn't heal. Awareness does. The ones who argue to win stay stuck in the same cycle. The ones who walk away win something better: freedom. The hardest part of walking away quietly is fighting the urge to explain why. You want them to know the hurt, the effort, the intention they ignored. But you learn that people who truly cared wouldn't have made you feel like you had to prove your pain. You stop explaining and start exiting. Peace needs no witness. Silence doesn't mean you're suppressing your voice, it means you've decided to stop wasting it. You begin to understand that not every disagreement deserves your energy. The peace you feel after walking away will always be louder than the chaos you left behind. You don't need to burn bridges, just stop crossing the ones that collapse every time you do. Walking away without noise means trusting timing. You stop forcing understanding before people are ready to see. You stop trying to control outcomes. You start trusting that your silence will say everything it needs to, even long after you've gone. Sometimes absence teaches louder than presence ever could. It takes maturity to know when a situation has expired. Not every battle is meant to be fought until the end. Some are meant to be observed, learned from, and released. You stop demanding closure from people who can't give it, and you realize closure was never something they owed you, it's something you give yourself. The ego hates quiet exits because it wants recognition. It wants the last word, the final judgment, the visible victory. But peace doesn't compete. It retreats. It knows that nothing you prove in noise is ever real power. Walking away in silence means you've outgrown the argument, not lost it. When you walk away quietly, you learn the difference between leaving and escaping. Escaping is running from discomfort. Walking away is choosing direction. One is fear-based, the other is awareness-based. You're no longer leaving because you can't handle it. You're leaving because it no longer aligns with your peace. The world expects drama when you leave. It expects emotion, reaction, noise. But you've learned that calm is the final act of power. You can leave a room, a relationship, a cycle, without slamming the door, because the real ending happens in your energy, not in your expression. Walking away quietly teaches emotional control. You stop needing to prove that you were right, kind, or fair. You start seeing that your peace is evidence enough. The people meant for you will understand without explanation. The rest will notice the silence and call it pride. Let them. You're not responsible for how your peace looks to those who thrive on conflict. Silence after chaos feels strange at first. You'll wait for the argument to continue, for someone to pull you back into old patterns. But when nothing happens, you feel something new: relief. The quiet isn't emptiness, it's healing. It's what it sounds like when energy returns to where it belongs. Walking away without noise doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care wisely. You stop giving your best explanations to people who've already chosen their version of the story. You realize that peace doesn't demand to be seen, it just exists. The less you justify your silence, the more you start feeling its strength. You also begin to notice that your calm confuses those who expected chaos. They don't know how to react when you don't react. That's the beauty of walking away quietly. It shifts power. You move from being predictable to being untouchable. They lose access to the part of you that always engaged, and that's when true peace begins. Walking away isn't about ego, it's about energy management. You stop pouring life into situations that never refill you. You stop trying to repair what keeps breaking you. The decision to leave quietly is an act of faith in yourself, in timing, in something greater that no longer requires resistance. You'll feel guilt at first. You'll wonder if silence makes you heartless. But with time, you'll see that silence isn't the absence of care. It's the presence of clarity. You're not walking away from love. You're walking toward peace. You're not avoiding responsibility. You're accepting reality. That's what maturity sounds like. The more you practice quiet exits, the more peaceful your life becomes. You stop reacting to gossip, stop engaging with negativity, stop defending what no longer needs defending. People who drain you start fading naturally because your silence no longer feeds them. You finally learn that not every ending needs applause, some just need acceptance. In silence, you find self-respect. You stop asking for people to value you. You start showing them how by walking away. Every quiet step is a reminder that you don't need to fight to prove your worth. Sometimes strength looks like restraint, knowing when to stay silent even when you could shatter someone with the truth. You'll look back and thank yourself for every time you walked away quietly instead of exploding loudly. You'll realize you didn't lose, you leveled up. You didn't retreat, you released. The calm that followed became your armor, because peace doesn't announce its power, it lives it. The loudest thing about you will be your silence, and that's how you'll know you've mastered the art of walking away without noise. Healing changes the way you respond to the world. It's not just about feeling better, it's about seeing clearer. The more you understand yourself, the less control others have over you. Manipulation feeds on confusion, guilt, and emotional dependency. When you start healing, you begin removing those hooks one by one. What used to control you no longer even reaches you. Before healing, you reacted to everything. A harsh word, a silent treatment, a guilt trip. All of it felt personal. You carried other people's moods like they were your responsibility. But healing rewires your reflexes. You stop taking the bait. You start noticing patterns. You realize that not everyone who reaches for your kindness has good intentions. Manipulation only works on unhealed wounds. When someone tries to trigger you, they're looking for the part of you that still needs validation, approval, or love. But once you start giving those things to yourself, their tactics fall flat. You see the attempt, and instead of reacting, you observe. That's not coldness. That's emotional intelligence. Healing teaches you to slow down before you respond. You stop being pulled by urgency. Manipulators thrive on your quick reactions, your need to fix, to please, to prove. But when you pause, they lose control. Silence becomes your filter, and time becomes your protection. You start to see how many of your emergencies were never yours to begin with. As you heal, you outgrow guilt. You stop confusing compliance with compassion. You realize that saying no isn't cruelty, it's clarity. The people who relied on your people-pleasing will feel threatened, not because you've changed, but because their control no longer works. That's how you know healing is happening, when peace starts irritating the ones who thrived on your chaos. Healing makes you less reactive and more reflective. You don't match energy anymore, you measure it. You begin to notice who drains you and who feeds you. You no longer chase closure from those who keep reopening wounds. Instead, you choose distance. Because the healed version of you knows that silence can be safer than engagement. When you start healing, you stop falling for emotional manipulation disguised as love. You no longer confuse intensity with intimacy or pity with care. You learn that real love doesn't require you to shrink, apologize, or prove your worth. The more you heal, the less you tolerate conditional affection, and that's what sets you free. Manipulators hate boundaries because boundaries remove their playground. When you enforce them, they'll accuse you of being selfish, distant, or cold. But boundaries aren't walls, they're fences with gates. You decide who enters, when, and how. And once you master that, No one can guilt you into tearing them down again. Healing gives you the power of emotional neutrality. You can listen without absorbing, care without collapsing, and observe without reacting. You stop arguing with people who twist your words. You stop defending yourself to those who misrepresent you. Your energy becomes too valuable to spend on confusion. When you heal, you stop seeking closure from the ones who hurt you. You realize closure doesn't come from explanations, it comes from acceptance. You don't need them to admit what they did. You only need to acknowledge how it affected you. Once you do, the story loses power. That's not revenge, that's release. Healing sharpens your intuition. You begin to sense dishonesty, manipulation, and inconsistency before words even confirm it. You can feel when someone's kindness has strings attached. That awareness doesn't make you cynical, it makes you wise. You stop ignoring red flags because you've finally learned that peace is worth more than potential. When you start respecting yourself, people who depended on your weakness will call you difficult. They'll miss the version of you that said yes too quickly, forgave too easily, and blamed yourself too often. But that version of you didn't have boundaries, it had fear. Healing replaces fear with self-trust. You no longer need permission to protect yourself. Healing also teaches you emotional independence. You stop relying on others to regulate your feelings. You stop chasing reassurance from those who keep you insecure. You learn how to comfort yourself, how to pause before reacting, how to breathe through discomfort. That's what makes you untouchable, not being invincible, but being stable. You realize manipulation thrives in noise. It hides in arguments, chaos, and confusion. That's why silence becomes your weapon. You stop explaining, stop defending, stop feeding drama. You don't win by overpowering, you win by withdrawing. The more you heal, the less you need to prove your peace to anyone. Healing changes the way you see conflict. You no longer engage to be right. You engage only when it brings resolution. You don't need to win, you just need to understand. You learn that some people argue to connect, others to control. The healed version of you knows the difference and refuses to participate in the latter. As you grow, manipulation begins to feel transparent. You can sense emotional games instantly, guilt trips, gaslighting, flattery with motives. What once confused you now reveals itself clearly. You don't even feel anger, you feel distance, because healing gives you perspective, and perspective dissolves manipulation. When you heal, you realize that peace doesn't mean avoiding people, it means outgrowing dependency. You stop seeking validation in conversations that always end the same way. You accept that some people will only understand your boundaries when they no longer have access to you. Let them think what they want. Your peace doesn't need defending. The healed mind doesn't seek revenge, it seeks release. You no longer need to expose people, you just stop giving them space to exist in your energy. They fade naturally. You don't announce your growth, you live it. And that quiet strength makes you immune to manipulation because you've already mastered the art of detachment. Every healed layer adds another level of protection. Your self-worth becomes your shield. Your calm becomes your armor. Manipulation can't survive in someone who's no longer ruled by guilt or fear. The one who once broke down under pressure now stands steady in silence. Healing didn't make you colder, it made you clear. You'll look at the same tactics that once made you question yourself and feel nothing. No reaction, no confusion, no urge to fix it. Just peace. That's when you'll know you've truly healed, when nothing can pull you out of alignment anymore. Because once you heal, you don't just become harder to manipulate, you become impossible to control. Letting go isn't about giving up, it's about growing up. It's realizing that holding on to what hurts isn't strength, it's fear disguised as loyalty. You think you're fighting for something meaningful, but sometimes what you're really doing is delaying your own healing. Wisdom begins the moment you stop confusing attachment with purpose. Not everything you lose is a loss. Some things are lessons that finally set you free. The hardest truth to accept is that some things are meant to end, no matter how much you care. You can love deeply and still need to walk away. You can wish the best for someone and still know they're not right for your peace. Letting go doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you stopped allowing pain to define what love should feel like. People often stay where they no longer belong because they fear the silence that follows. They think emptiness means failure, but emptiness is just space, the space where healing begins. When you let go, you make room for clarity. The absence of what's wrong is the beginning of what's right. The universe can't fill your hands when they're still clinging to what's gone. Letting go requires courage, not strength. Strength holds on, courage releases. It's easy to grip what's familiar, even when it hurts. It takes bravery to loosen your grasp and trust that what's meant for you will stay without force. The moment you stop clinging to control, peace quietly walks in, not because life got easier, but because you did. Wisdom doesn't always come from endurance. Sometimes it comes from surrender. You start realizing that not every chapter is meant to last forever. Some stories teach, some transform, and some end, and that's okay. The wisdom lies in knowing when something has fulfilled its purpose. Staying beyond that moment doesn't deepen the lesson, it only repeats the pain. Letting go also means forgiving yourself for missing the signs, for staying too long, for believing what you wanted to believe. You did the best you could with what you knew. There's no shame in being human, in hoping, in trying. The wisdom isn't in never falling, it's in knowing when to stop falling the same way twice. You realize that closure doesn't come from conversations, it comes from acceptance. You don't need the perfect goodbye, the apology, or the explanation. You just need the truth. That peace is worth more than answers. The moment you stop chasing clarity from others, you start finding it within yourself. That's where real healing begins. When you let go, you'll feel the pull of habit. Your mind will replay the memories, the what-ifs, the unfinished thoughts. That's normal. Letting go isn't a single decision, it's a daily practice. Each time you choose peace over nostalgia, you're retraining your soul to value freedom over familiarity. There's a difference between letting go and forgetting. You don't erase the past, you integrate it, you learn from it, you honor it, and then you move forward without dragging it behind you. The past is a teacher, not a home. When you stop living in it, you start seeing life for what it is, unfolding, not repeating. The wisdom in letting go lies in realizing that holding on doesn't fix what's broken. You can't force alignment. You can't convince energy to match yours. The more you push, the more resistance you feel. Peace begins the moment you stop fighting for what refuses to flow naturally. What's meant for you will never require force. Letting go also means accepting that people can love you and still not choose you, and that's okay. It's not your job to make them ready, aware, or healed. Everyone's journey has its own timing. When you stop trying to control their growth, you give both of you the freedom to evolve separately. That's love in its highest form without possession. As you grow wiser, you'll see that letting go isn't the end of love, it's the evolution of it. You stop holding people hostage in your heart. You release them with gratitude for the lesson they brought. You no longer carry resentment because you realize every ending was redirection. The story doesn't die, it transforms into wisdom. There's peace in release. The moment you finally put something down, you notice how heavy it was. You stop blaming others for your exhaustion because you understand that some pain lasted only because you kept feeding it. Letting go is not loss, it's liberation. The weight doesn't define you, your ability to release it does. Letting go doesn't make you cold, it makes you clear. You start seeing people and situations for what they are, not what you wish they were. You stop romanticizing potential and start respecting reality. You realize that peace is not found in fixing others, it's found in honoring your own emotional boundaries. You learn that clinging to the past is a form of resistance. You are trying to rewrite what's already written. But peace lives in acceptance, in trusting that everything happened exactly as it was supposed to, even the painful parts. When you accept the story instead of editing it, you begin to live in truth, not tension. The wisdom of letting go is knowing that not every loss needs replacing. Some spaces are meant to stay open for a while, to breathe, to rest, to recalibrate. Healing doesn't rush to fill silence, it learns to live in it. You start to understand that the calm after chaos isn't emptiness, it's restoration. As you master the art of letting go, you stop fighting life. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" You begin flowing with change instead of resisting it. Every ending starts to feel less like a wound and more like a doorway. That's when you realize you're not losing, you're evolving. People will mistake your peace for indifference. They'll think you've stopped caring because you've stopped chasing. But you haven't stopped feeling. You've just stopped suffering. You still love, but without attachment. You still care, but without chaos. That's not numbness, that's wisdom. You'll look back at everything you thought you couldn't let go of and smile, because you'll see how life replaced every loss with something lighter, stronger, and truer. You'll understand that letting go was never the end of your story. It was the moment you finally took control of it. Wisdom isn't in holding on, it's in knowing when to release, so your hands are free to receive what's next. There comes a time when your silence starts to speak louder than any argument ever could. You stop reacting, stop explaining, stop matching chaos with chaos, and suddenly, the same people who once controlled your emotions don't know what to do anymore. Your calm becomes unsettling to them. They're used to your fire, your defensiveness, your need to prove. But now, you've learned that peace doesn't need an audience, it just needs consistency. When you stop feeding drama, the people who survive on it start starving. They expect the same emotional response they used to pull from you. But it doesn't come. You've reached a level of awareness where you see through the manipulation, the guilt trips, the small provocations. You no longer take the bait because you understand that reaction is their reward. And the moment you stop playing, they lose their power. Calmness isn't a lack of emotion, it's mastery over emotion. You still feel anger, disappointment, sadness, but you choose where to place it. You no longer let others drag you into chaos they created just to escape their own discomfort. You see the game, but you don't play it. That's not weakness, that's wisdom earned through experience. People who can't control you will always try to confuse you. They'll question your silence, mock your peace, and accuse you of not caring. But what they're really saying is, I can't reach you anymore. Your calm makes them confront their own instability, their own noise, and rather than face it, they blame you for not joining them in the storm. When you start responding with calm, you learn how uncomfortable peace is for those addicted to chaos. They crave conflict because conflict gives them identity. Your stillness forces them to sit with themselves, and for many, that's unbearable. So they'll provoke, project, and push until they realize your energy is no longer for sale. Your calm confuses because it breaks patterns. People expect repetition, the same arguments, same reactions, same emotional exchange. But when you stop reacting, the loop ends. You've changed the rhythm, and now they can't dance to the tune they once controlled. You become unpredictable, and nothing disarms manipulation faster than unpredictability. Calm doesn't mean passive, it means selective. You choose your responses like currency, investing only where it brings growth, not chaos. The more you protect your peace, the more others mistake it for arrogance. But calm isn't about superiority, it's about self-respect. You no longer need to prove your composure to people who thrive on confusion. You'll notice how peace shifts power. The person who stays calm controls the conversation. The one who reacts loses it. When you learn to pause before responding, you reclaim the space between stimulus and reaction, and that's where real control lives. You're no longer emotionally hijacked, you're emotionally anchored. They'll try to label your calm as cold, distant, or detached, anything to pull you back into chaos. But you don't owe anyone emotional access. You've realized that protecting your peace is not cruelty, it's clarity. You can care and still stay composed. You can love someone and still refuse to be pulled into their dysfunction. Your calm isn't weakness. It's a signal that you've healed past the need to prove yourself. You used to react because you needed to be seen, heard, understood. But now, you understand yourself enough to stop demanding recognition from those who can't give it. Your validation comes from awareness, not attention. The stronger your calm grows, the louder the world feels. Every argument, every manipulation, every guilt trip becomes transparent. You start noticing how often people speak from their wounds instead of their wisdom. And instead of trying to fix them, you simply step back. Healing made you compassionate, not compliant. Your peace is unsettling because it removes leverage. People who once controlled you through emotional highs and lows now have nothing to grip. They'll question your silence because silence can't be argued with. They'll call you heartless because your calm refuses to feed their drama. But you're not heartless, you're healed. Calm doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've learned where to place your care. You still show up, but not for chaos. You still love, but not at the expense of yourself. You've learned that peace isn't found in fixing others, it's found in managing yourself. The calm you've built didn't come easy, and you won't let anyone dismantle it. The greatest strength is self-control. The ability to remain centered while the world tries to unbalance you is rare. Your calm isn't built on ignorance, it's built on awareness. You've felt the chaos, lived through the storms, and learned that not every wave deserves your reaction. You've mastered the art of emotional restraint, the mark of true power. People who depend on drama will try to provoke you until they realize they're arguing with silence. That's when frustration turns into confusion. They'll wonder how you can stay so grounded, so steady, so unbothered. But what they don't see is that it took years of breaking, healing, and rebuilding to stand this still. Your calm is your boundary. It separates what deserves your energy from what doesn't. When you stay centered, you teach others how to approach you. They either rise to your level of peace or fall away from it. You stop chasing connections and start attracting alignment. Calm becomes your filter for everything: people, conversations, and choices. The irony of peace is that it feels like power to others, and it is, but not the kind that dominates, the kind that liberates. You're no longer reactive to manipulation, guilt, or fear. You move differently now, slower, wiser, quieter, and that stillness makes noise in a world addicted to drama. The people who misunderstand your calm will call it pride, but those who've done the same inner work will recognize it as protection. They'll see the discipline behind your silence, the control behind your stillness. You don't rise to every provocation because you've learned that every battle fought in noise is one piece already lost. You'll look at the people who used to trigger you and feel nothing. Not anger, not resentment, just neutrality. That's when you'll know your calm isn't just an act, it's who you've become. Because real peace doesn't demand to be understood, it only demands to be kept. Your calm will confuse the world, but it will always comfort your soul. You've learned that calm isn't given, it's built. It's the result of choosing peace when chaos calls your name, of responding with stillness when everything inside you wants to react. The journey wasn't about becoming untouchable. It was about learning that peace doesn't come from control, it comes from understanding. You stopped chasing balance in the outside world and started creating it within yourself. The people who once fed off your emotions won't understand your silence. They'll question it, test it, maybe even resent it. But that's not your problem anymore. You've realized that your calm is not a strategy, it's self-respect. You no longer give everyone access to your energy, your reactions, your peace. That discipline, that restraint, that awareness, that's what growth looks like. You've reached the point where you don't need to explain your peace or defend it. You've outgrown chaos disguised as connection. You've stopped mistaking noise for importance. Your silence is not emptiness, it's alignment. You finally understand that the most powerful person in the room isn't the loudest one. It's the one who refuses to be moved. So keep your calm, protect it like it's sacred, because it is. Let others misread it if they must. Peace doesn't require translation. You don't owe the world a reaction. You owe yourself a life that feels steady. And from this point forward, remember, your calm is your revolution, quiet, grounded, and completely unshakable.